She said I was dangerous for her, but her hand never let go of mine. I still remember the first time I saw that look in her eyes, the one that said she knew exactly what she shouldn't be feeling, but couldn't stop herself either. It started quietly. A half-empty house, a cup of tea gone cold, and her, my aunt, sitting by the window, hair pulled back but with a few strands refusing to obey. The late afternoon light hit her face just right, soft and golden, like the world was conspiring to make her unforgettable. I had come to stay with her for a few weeks, my mother's older sister. She'd insisted after my father's passing that I needed a change of air. "You'll like it here," she'd said on the phone, her voice warm, but with that faint, unreachable sadness that made people want to listen longer. And she was right. The house was peaceful, almost too peaceful. It smelled faintly of jasmine and old paperbacks. She taught literature at the university nearby, and her walls were lined with novels, their spines worn, annotated in neat, delicate handwriting. For the first few days, nothing happened. Just shared meals, the sound of pages turning, and the occasional smile that lasted a little longer than it should have. Then came that evening. She was sitting on the couch, reading, her glasses slipping down her nose. I just finished washing the dishes, and I don't know what came over me, but I asked, "Do you ever get lonely here?" She looked up, startled, not by the question, but by the tone of my voice. "Lonely," she repeated, the word lingering between us. "Sometimes, but I've learned to keep myself busy." She closed the book, marking the page with her thumb, and smiled softly. "Why? Are you lonely too?" I shrugged, trying to play it off. "Sometimes." Her gaze lingered, long enough for me to feel it. The kind of silence that doesn't end, it deepens. I could hear the faint ticking of the clock, the wind brushing against the curtains. Then she said it, not quite teasing, not quite serious. "My nephew shouldn't be looking at me like that." I froze. She smirked, not cruelly, but as if she'd caught herself doing the same thing. "I wasn't looking at you like anything," I murmured. She hummed, eyes narrowing just slightly. "You're dangerous for me. You know that?" The words hit differently. The kind that shouldn't be said, but once they exist, you can't take them back. I could have laughed, changed the subject, but I didn't, because something in the way she said it, low, careful, half afraid, told me she meant it. She reached for her cup of tea, but her hand brushed mine instead. A small, accidental touch. Only it wasn't accidental at all. Not the way she didn't pull back. Not the way she let the silence stretch until my pulse started to echo in my chest. Her fingers trembled slightly. I don't think she noticed. Or maybe she did, and that was the problem. "You should go rest," she whispered, finally withdrawing her hand. "Yeah," I said softly, but neither of us moved. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Then she smiled, not her usual polite smile, but something else. A quiet surrender wrapped in defiance. "I mean it," she said, though her tone betrayed her. "You really are dangerous." Before I could respond, the doorbell rang, sharp and unexpected. She flinched, her hand still inches from mine. And in that single heartbeat, I realized something neither of us had said out loud yet. Whatever had just started between us wasn't going to stop. She said I was dangerous for her, but her hand never let go of mine. After that night, the air between us changed. Subtle, but unmistakable. We spoke the same, acted the same, but every word now had a shadow behind it. A pause, a glance that stayed too long. She didn't mention what happened by the couch. Neither did I. Yet every time our hands brushed while passing a plate or a book, I could feel her flinch, not in rejection, but in recognition. One morning, I found her sitting outside on the porch, barefoot, coffee in hand. The sun caught the silver in her hair, and for a second, she didn't look like my aunt at all, just a woman lost in thought. "Didn't sleep?" I asked, stepping closer. She smiled faintly. Too many memories in this house. Her voice was soft, but there was something heavy beneath it. I sat beside her, careful to leave space, though every instinct in me wanted to close it. She looked at the horizon, not at me. "You remind me of someone," she said finally. Who? My husband, she replied after a pause. When he was your age, before he became someone else. I never asked about him. I knew they'd separated years ago, quietly. But this was the first time she mentioned him like that, as if she still saw pieces of him in me. I'm not him, I said quietly. Her eyes met mine then, and the look she gave me, half broken, half searching, felt like a confession neither of us could afford. I know, she whispered. That's what scares me. We sat there for a long time after that, saying nothing. The world felt smaller, just the sound of the wind, the faint clink of her ring against the coffee mug, and the pulse in my throat that wouldn't slow down. That afternoon, she stayed in her study grading papers, and I tried to distract myself. Read, cook, do anything. But every time I passed her door, I could hear the soft sound of her pen, the quiet sighs between sentences. By evening, rain started. I found her in the kitchen, standing by the window, lost in the storm. I used to love rain, she said without turning. Now it just feels lonely. I stepped closer. Maybe it doesn't have to. She didn't move, but her reflection in the glass looked at me. For a moment, the storm outside and the quiet between us were the same thing. Restless, waiting. Then she reached for the window latch. Her hand trembled slightly, and I caught it without thinking. We both froze. Her fingers were cold, her pulse quick. This is wrong, she breathed, almost to herself. Then why aren't you letting go? I asked softly. She didn't answer, just stood there, eyes wet, lips parting like she wanted to say something that never came. Outside, thunder cracked, and she finally looked at me. Not as an aunt, not as a woman with rules, but as someone who'd stopped fighting what she already knew. She didn't let go. Not this time. The rain had stopped, but the storm didn't leave. It just moved inside. That night, we spoke less, like every word might reveal too much. She avoided my eyes at dinner. I pretended not to notice how her hands shook slightly when she poured the tea. The air between us felt charged, like the seconds before lightning strikes. When she finally said, "Good night," her voice was too careful. Every syllable weighed, every breath measured. But neither of us slept. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening. The faint creak of her floorboards, the sound of her pacing, a door opening, closing, then silence. It was unbearable. I got up, feet moving before I could stop myself. Her door was half open, light spilling through the crack. She was standing by the window again, wearing a light gray robe, her hair loose for once, soft, real, human. She turned when she felt me there. No words, just that look again, the one that asked, "Why are you here?" and answered itself with, "Because I wanted you to be." "You shouldn't," she said quietly. I know, but neither of us moved. The silence thickened until even the rain outside dared not return. I took a step closer, just one. She didn't step back. Her breath hitched, her fingers tightening around the fabric of her robe. Then a sound shattered the moment. The deep, distant rumble of a car pulling up the driveway. Her eyes widened. "Oh God," she whispered. "That's him." "Who?" "My husband." Her voice cracked on the word, like it didn't belong to her anymore. "He wasn't supposed to come until next week." Panic flickered through her face. Not fear of him, but fear of what he might see. I froze, heart pounding. "What do I do?" "Go," she hissed, pulling the door shut halfway. "Now." But I couldn't move, not until I saw the tremor in her hands, the way her composure cracked open just enough for me to glimpse the storm inside her. Then the sound of keys at the front door, sharp, final. She pushed me gently toward her study. "In there, please." I slipped inside just as the front door opened. Her husband's voice carried through the hall, deep, familiar, casual. "You didn't tell me you had company." My chest tightened. She answered, steady but distant. "Just a student, helping with some grading." He laughed. "You never could stop teaching, could you?" Their footsteps passed close enough that I could see their shadows under the door. Two outlines, one calm, one trembling. Every second felt like an hour. When the voices faded, I exhaled, hand still trembling. Through the sliver of light, I saw her pause in the hall, her back to him, her face toward my door. Our eyes didn't meet, but I swear she felt me there. And in that small, impossible moment before she turned away, her fingers brushed the doorframe. Just once. A quiet signal that said, "Don't go." The days that followed blurred together, tense, polite, unbearably careful. Her husband stayed around longer than expected. The house that once hummed with quiet warmth now felt suffocating. Every word she spoke to him sounded practiced, like someone reading lines she didn't believe in anymore. And I hated that I noticed. I hated the way my chest tightened every time he touched her arm, the way she flinched, almost invisible, but I saw it. One evening, he left for a conference dinner. She and I were alone again, pretending not to notice that the air had changed the second the door closed. She was in the kitchen, washing a plate that was already clean. I leaned against the counter, trying to stay composed, but my voice came out sharper than I meant. "Do you love him?" The question hung there, heavy, uninvited. Her hands froze mid-wash. For a long moment, she didn't answer. Then she said softly, "Love isn't always the reason people stay." "That's not an answer," I said. She put the plate down, slowly. "No, it's the truth." Her tone was steady, but her eyes gave her away. Tired, raw, honest. Something inside me cracked. "Then why pretend?" I said. "Why act like everything's fine when it's not?" She turned, water dripping from her hands, expression unreadable. "Because pretending is safer than admitting what I want." The way she said what I want made my throat tighten. I took a step closer. "And what is it you want?" She looked at me like she'd rehearsed 100 ways not to answer that question, and then failed every single one. "You," she whispered. The word felt like a secret she'd buried too long. I didn't breathe. Neither did she. Her hands trembled again, but she didn't step back this time. Her robe sleeve brushed my arm, soft, electric. "This can't happen," she said, voice breaking. I know what I am." I interrupted, my voice low. "But you can't keep acting like it doesn't matter when it does." She looked up, eyes glistening. "You think this is simple?" "No, but it's real." She shook her head, biting her lip, like she was trying to anchor herself. "You don't understand what this could destroy." "Then tell me to stop." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. The only sound was her breathing, uneven, shallow, and the faint hum of the refrigerator. I took one more step, close enough to see the faint pulse in her throat, to feel the tremor of her breath against my face. "Tell me," I said again. Her gaze flickered to my lips, then back to my eyes. "I can't," she whispered. We stood there, inches apart, two people who knew better, suspended in the space between guilt and gravity. Then a sudden sound. A car door slammed outside. Her husband. Her eyes widened, fear flooding back in. "Go," she breathed, stepping back. But I didn't move. Not yet. Because before everything fell apart again, before she turned away, she reached out, fingers brushing my chest just once. A silent promise. A warning. And a question neither of us could answer. The sound of the car doors still echoed when I finally stepped back. My heart was pounding, my throat tight. She turned away before I could read her face. The perfect mask sliding back into place just as her husband's footsteps reached the porch. I slipped out the side door, barely breathing. The night air hit like cold water. I waited behind the wall, listening to their voices blur into muffled words. Normal words, ordinary ones. But under them, I could hear it, the tremor she was hiding. That night, I didn't sleep. By morning, I had made a decision. I'd leave before this destroyed her, before it destroyed me. But when I went downstairs to tell her, she was already waiting, seated at the table, a cup of coffee untouched, eyes red from no sleep. "You're leaving," she said before I could speak. I nodded slowly. "It's better this way." Her lips parted, but no sound came. Then she looked down at the ring on her finger, twisting it absently. "He knows," she said quietly. My stomach dropped. "What?" "He doesn't know, no," she said, voice shaking. "But he suspects. Last night, He asked why the guest room sheets were still warm. I told him I'd been cleaning, but she stopped, covering her face. He's not stupid. I froze. What are you going to do? She laughed, a bitter sound. What can I do? He's not the type to scream or accuse. He'll just watch. Wait. Until I slip. The image made my skin crawl. You shouldn't stay here. She looked up sharply. And go where? With you. The words stung, not because they were cruel, but because part of her wanted them to be. I didn't mean yes, you did, she cut in, standing now, her voice trembling. You think running would fix this? That you could just take me somewhere and it would stop being wrong? I stepped closer. I just don't want you to be afraid. She turned away, gripping the edge of the counter. I've been afraid for most of my life, she whispered. Afraid to leave him. Afraid to be seen. Afraid to want what I'm not supposed to. Then she looked at me, eyes bright with something fierce. But you're not the danger here, are you? I am. Before I could reply, her phone buzzed on the counter. A new message. She hesitated, then unlocked it. The color drained from her face. I saw the screen before she turned it over. A single line from her husband. I heard everything. The words burned into my mind. She sank into the chair, hands trembling. He must have. My chest tightened. The study. Her eyes snapped up. The study, where I'd hidden that night. The door hadn't fully latched. He must have heard enough. The silence between us was deafening. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, He's coming home early. Then we go, I said instantly. She looked at me, torn, terrified, and yet something inside her sparked again. If we do this, she said slowly, there's no going back. I nodded. Maybe that's the point. And for the first time, she didn't look away. The house felt hollow, the kind of silence that follows after truth has been overheard. She stood by the window again, just like the first night. The same gray light, the same trembling hands. Only this time, there was no pretending left between us. Her husband's message still glowed on her phone screen, turned face down on the table. I could see her pulse flutter at her throat, quick and fragile, like she was trying to hold herself together with air. He knows, she said finally, her voice cracked but calm. There's no undoing that. I took a slow breath. Then come with me. She turned, tired, beautiful, afraid. And go where? Anywhere that isn't here, I said. Anywhere you don't have to keep apologizing for wanting to breathe. She let out a shaky laugh. You make it sound so simple. It is, I said quietly. It's everything after that that's hard. For a long moment, she said nothing, just stared at me, at the boy she shouldn't have touched, the man who had seen her when she thought she was invisible. Then she whispered, You'll hate me one day for this. Maybe, I said, but not today. She looked at me then, really looked, and I saw the shift happen. The fear in her eyes softened into something else, clarity. She walked toward me slowly, like every step was a decision. You shouldn't love someone like me, she murmured. Then stop making me, I said. That broke something in both of us. She reached for me, not cautiously this time, but like someone grabbing the edge of a cliff. Her fingers found mine, cold and trembling, and then her forehead rested against my chest. No words, just breath. The quiet thud of two hearts caught in the same mistake. I spent half my life being what people expected, she whispered. And for what? A marriage built on silence. A house full of ghosts. Then stop being what they want, I said, voice low. Be who you are now. She looked up, eyes glistening. And who am I? The woman who finally stopped pretending, I said. Her lips parted like she might answer, but before she could, headlights swept across the window. A car pulling in. Her husband. The moment snapped. Reality came flooding back like cold water. She stepped back, tears falling silently. Go, she said, but softer this time. Before this gets uglier than it already is. I hesitated, and in that pause, she reached up, cupped my face, and pressed her thumb to my jaw like she wanted to remember the shape of it. Don't wait for me, she said. I won't, I lied. Then she smiled, a small, broken, brave smile, the same one from that first night. You really were dangerous for me, she whispered. And you, I said, were the only one who ever saw me. The sound of the front door opening echoed down the hall. I slipped out through the side door into the gray dawn, the smell of rain still clinging to the air. Behind me, the house stood quiet again, but not empty, because for the first time, she had chosen something that felt like freedom, even if it wasn't me. It's been 2 years since that morning. Sometimes, I still hear the sound of rain against glass and think of her, standing in that kitchen with trembling hands, whispering words we both knew would haunt us. I never went back to that house. Not once. But there are days when memory feels closer than geography, when her voice echoes in the quiet parts of my mind, calm, careful, and heartbreakingly alive. I moved to another city, found a small apartment, started writing again. Maybe because I needed to put everything somewhere it couldn't hurt anyone anymore. Every story I write begins the same way, with a woman sitting by a window and a boy who doesn't know what to do with his heart. I tell myself it's fiction. It never is. She reached out once. A letter, handwritten in her neat, looping script. No return address, just a few sentences folded perfectly inside. I've learned that love doesn't have to last to be real. Sometimes it just has to wake you up. Thank you for waking me up. I read it 100 times before I could breathe properly. Then I put it away, not to forget, but to let it rest. Because what we had wasn't meant to survive the world. It was meant to change the way we saw it. She taught me that love isn't always the beginning of something. Sometimes, it's the ending that teaches you what it was supposed to mean. I still remember the last look she gave me. Not fear, not guilt, just peace. Like she finally stopped running from herself. And maybe that's what freedom really is. The last I heard, she left her husband, took a teaching job overseas. The kind of place where no one knows her past. I like to imagine she still reads poetry by lamplight, smiles at her students the same way she once smiled at me. Soft, knowing, a little dangerous. As for me, I've learned to live without waiting. Some loves don't end in reunion. They end in understanding. And sometimes, that's enough. I don't know if she still thinks of me, or if she's buried it all the way I tried to. But I like to think that somewhere, when it rains, she remembers too. The touch she didn't pull away from. The words she never said. The boy she called dangerous. And the woman who made him believe in love anyway. Speech Balloon, did you enjoy the story? Which moment hit you hardest? Their first spark, the storm, or the goodbye? Red heart if you felt something while reading. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more slow burn, emotional love stories like this one. Backhand index pointing down, tell me in the comments. Should their paths cross again? Or was this ending quiet, unfinished, unforgettable, the only one that truly fit?